So, hello everyone, and welcome to the first actual non-kickoff meeting. Welcome Vitali from for this one as well. Uh, okay, so let's get going. There's not a lot of updates to be had for this one, but let's go over the epic. I see that we now have all of the sub epics in place. Um, so. Of course, not a lot of updates, but thank you, Tan, for creating this epic already with all of the things we need to work on. Uh, this one is also full. Tichen also has already in place her uh, epic. Um, does anyone has any problems or any concerns over their specific exit criteria? No? Um, so for context, Vitaly, we are what we did, we split the work into four DRIs because there are four exit criterias. And it's not that these people who are going to do all the work. They just need, their goal is to make sure that the work is being done in the first place and then collaborate with others. There's nothing specific. I is my
So I was
manager
watching the
of this.
recording, the last one, so
Okay,
if you don't need to repeat, I am familiar what
okay,
was happening.
perfect. So
Mm.
let me open up this one here. I'll also put the guys that I think it's this one and this one better. Let me see over there. So I'm gonna put this here. Uh, Dan, how are you feeling about your exit criteria? You think it's too much? It's achievable?
I think it's doable. I just want to make sure that we stick to the existing setup rather than expanding on these items. So, for example, like the linters and all, like there are
Mm-hmm.
others like state of the art kind of tooling out there, but we might just stick with what we kind of use across all the repos for now, and
Mm-hmm.
then like for example, like MyPy and things like that. There's other tools like Rough or UV, which is just I haven't actually explored that. So
Mm-hmm.
so as long as we can stick to that, then I think we can keep the scope small and get it running.
And
I just
well, yeah,
I
Tichen?
have a question. I just like look through the breakdown of the epic for guidelines and the place for Python code base creation, which also contains the code style guide item,
Yeah.
which now I kind of right now stop like understanding what should would be needed for the maintainer for the code review maintenance guidelines, because like I understand that this is kind of like two different things, but
Yeah.
but
Um
they kind of overlap, This is
mm, yeah, totally. So I think if you take in GitLab as an example, I guess what I'm trying to write up is kind of a Robocop tooling.
uh-huh.
Um, like for Python equivalent would be like FLAC or the code formatting.
Hmm.
But on top of it, there's a bunch of things that I don't think we can use a tool to catch.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so your guy, I guess, will be an overranging uh, guidelines. That's including the tool, like how to do with code style and also writing
Hmm.
extra linters and things like that. But I think there's other part of
Yep.
the guide that is not can be caught by tools and things like that.
Uh-huh. And also I was thinking about because I was thinking in the past a bit about the code style guide. Also initially for the GitLab code base, it was just kind of linked to some, I don't remember which exactly there were this like best practices, like, I don't know, for example, Thoughtbot, but I'm not sure. So do we also like, is a kind of some standard style guide for Python applications, or we need to just invent ours from scratch?
We have PEP8, which
Yeah.
is the standard. Um, but and this is what I want to discuss a little bit later. But so PEP8 is the standard guideline, which black and other formatters apply. Standard apply. Yeah. So we do have something on those lines that we
Yeah.
should be based on. So they should be the primary link, and then
Mm-hmm.
because why my manager is on this doc and I don't know why. Um, so what I okay, this is the primary one, and but we'll have to make that work for GitLab, right? So when we're gonna talk about this later. So the Python that will have a GitLab at the GitLab might not be exactly the same as the PEP8, and we need to discuss when we need to break the rules or when we need to make it a little bit different to better suit the GitLab use case and the GitLab contributors. But that's one thing that I think it's important here. I think creating the cookie cutters or whatever is not the biggest challenge for us. It's the first challenge, but the biggest one is how to keep other repositories updated. So, for example, we update the linters.
Mhm.
How do we keep the other repositories updated? In the GitLab code base, it's easy because everything's in
Yeah.
the same monorepo, so
True.
everything applies. This one is a little bit, this is actually one of the advantages of the monorepo. On this case, a little bit more complicated. So how are we gonna, like, we don't need to have a solution now, but I'm thinking about that problem.
Mm. Could it be a package on its own as well, like GitLab have GitLab styles or something? I can't remember
Mm,
exactly, but I think Rubocop was actually encapsulated, or at least the rules are in a separate gem, um,
hmm
which only GitLab use at the moment. But, I mean, that's the idea. Like you can have a package that deal with all of those. Um,
hmm
yeah,
That's the fact. I think it's a good idea to encapsulate this kind of setup, even like the
mm,
left hook things and everything. We could maybe have everything as a Python package that we can export and reuse
yeah,
across the different applications. That might be an interesting one. Uh, I, I'm just bringing the discussion. I don't have any solution for this really.
yeah,
I don't think anyone has a solution. This is a common problem
mhm, yeah,
because it's not only like the code, but also the CI pipelines. So how do we keep the CI pipelines for linters and things
mhm,
in sync? Um, and our working group doesn't need really to have the answer for that in itself. We do have
yeah,
to highlight the problem, and then we can have a specific work for this area, but or collaboration on that area. But yeah, so cool. Anything else on this exit criteria that we would like to discuss? No. So Tatiana, on anything on yours that you would like to bring? Anything that's on your mind?
Only maybe that I was thinking about that we kind of agreed to like work on the review, like the reviews and maintainership guidelines a bit later, because once
Okay.
we have something done for the code base creation. But I was thinking that like probably we need to search for the good um, code style already, and maybe kind of already push something to the
Hmm.
handbook.
So perhaps what the work on here could be is instead of actually doing tasks, being a bridge across the different uh the two first criterias, especially the two other criterias of building the initial uh contribution guidelines and the creation guidelines to then write the maintainership guidelines, right? This could be something. Okay. Hello, McLeod.
For the maintainership, I believe AI Gateway have such thing. Like it had documentations on maintainership. It's really rough. I think we're just starting on that, but something we can use, or at least generalize it for other use case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But by the rough documentation, what you mean is like the maintainership process or the guidelines for maintainers.
There is.
Can we quickly see it?
I'm opening. Let me see. It's on the.
Um,
I do have that. There is. Isn't there a contribution? No, but there is
if you go
docs
to top, yeah,
here.
it's maintainership.
Prefer domain knowledge. So there is. Let me link this over there.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. It's rough. It's initial, but what what I would like to see on the maintainership is also maybe some examples or something on what not to do, architecture, and but this already helps in the
But
beginning.
I'm thinking that we need to move this document to the handbook, kind
Yeah.
of to make it the same way as we keep the maintainership guidelines for any other
Mhm.
languages in GitLab.
Yeah, I think so. I think every doc should be at the docs.gitlab.com, at least accessible. I know that Gitali and the other subservices are kept on the repository and then synced to GitLab when a release is created. But since this has a bit of a different release process, same again, the fourth exit criteria, this doesn't happen. So for now, I would recommend having it on the should this at the should this be at the docs.gitlab page. Yeah, and especially since this is cross repository, right? So since maintainership guidelines are cross repository. Cool. Um, for so Mo is not on this one, but he created also his he created the guidance. So establish mentorship progress, set up learning for groups, and create an onboarding guide. Um, okay. I think this type the mentoring process, having a consistent mentoring process, even if it's channels to discuss specific MRs or reach out to. We have FAI Gateway and we have Python channels. We have these two channels, but we don't have a clear way of asking for help or on specific code bases. Learning group, that's an interesting one. Or at least the process of creating the learning group, and onboarding guide, of course. I see you have added a comment over here as well, the channel. Yeah. Does anybody have any comments on this one? Not yet? Cool. And for the one that I am working through, I have no comments. I just created the epic. I'm gonna start setting up the guidelines. Yeah, there's one issue for each. The utilities and the libraries are a bit easier. The only challenge now is that we don't have a PyPy account, but with that in place, that is simply achieved. We can use for now GitLab PyPy repository, but yeah, the services are the one that is most complicated. It also means consolidating the docs that we have in a gateway for deployment and the runaway docs. And I'll start writing up something or creating the drafts this week. Any concerns on this topic? Everything good? Any? Okay. So since we have been up we went through the general updates. Anybody wants to discuss something? Some idea, some problem, some goal?
I have a question, which kind of came to my mind just right now. Do we have any use, or like, do we need just to deal with Jupyter notebooks? Because, like, I'm asking that because it looks like a very useful tool, and I tried it a few times, but to be honest, I don't kind of grasp 100% how it works and how to like I tried to find the guides how to actually how to use it locally, but it was a bit complicated. But I feel this is something this is something that could be useful, and if I actually have also some guides for non-Python developers, or just kind of
Yeah.
use it through our like the guides in general, it would be very helpful.
So let me show you how I use this. Let me go through this one. Let me go so you get 3 CM notebooks. So poetry. So I have Jupyter already installed. This is a repository which I have a bunch of stuff. This is where I do my we do on for custom models, we do our more data sciencey work of analyzing the experiments. So if I go to do a chat, doc search evaluation, this one, and I do Jupyter poetry run Jupyter lab. This will kickstart Jupyter Notebook. And here I have notebooks where I code. So why do I find this useful? This is very useful when you have a loop of testing things. So for example, I would use this the same way as a uh, interactive terminal. So I can do, for example, import. I don't know. I can do Markdown so that I can have notes as well. This is something I want to do. And then since I am here, I can also write code, print like def, hello world, uh, print hello. And then I can use it over here. So I can call libraries, I can do anything I want, I can plot images. This is for me is very useful when I was working on this, because then I could run all of the metrics and understand the results and document the results. For the code bases we have, so this is a very much this is used more by data scientists on more like on analytics work, but it is useful as a debugging tool. So you wouldn't really submit or push this for Git, but you could use it locally. The exception is runbooks. So for example, if we want to have a guidelines on how to debug stuff, on how to fetch data from our logs, we could have this code in a Jupyter notebook with all of this explanation, with all of the use cases, and that could be also submitted to the Git so that someone on call could quickly pick up and run a notebook and have all of the analysis of the system. But I think this could be out. At least we could add that we could use this for debugging purposes, and I think it's a very useful tool for debugging. So you were talking yesterday, we were discussing yesterday about like using of interactive terminal. So this is a replacement, but yeah, Nikolai.
So I think that there is a opportunity to like maybe combine the Jupyter notebooks into the non-Python developers learning process. So as a part of preparing the materials, we can like prepare the notebooks with specific subjects like the dunder methods or whatnot. And this way, the developers, they are very clear that the Jupyter notebooks are a really good way of presenting the data and connecting to the code, as you showed.
Yeah.
Like we can write some notes, some description, like here, this is why this is awesome. Like using the dunder methods is awesome because you can achieve these results. And here you have the snippets that you can run and actually see how it works and play around with it. And this can kind of like give us a two benefit for the price of one. So once the non-Python developers would learn different aspects of Python with those Jupyter notebooks as the resources, as the interactive resources, but they will also embrace the Jupyter notebooks themselves as a tool to just play around with Python, because I agree with you, Eduardo. I already use notebooks quite a few times just for debugging purposes. Like I just imported some class or library that I was or package I was working with. I had some issue, or I just wanted to refactor it, and I just start playing around with it. It's definitely more efficient than the Rails console, which we are like as Ruby developers more familiar with.
Yeah.
I think that this is like a way to bridge or like to introduce it in like very natural way. Like first chapter in the learning group could be like, hey, this is the Jupyter notebook, this is how it works. And you can write the hello world, and then from that you can just progress to a different aspects of Python. Also, from my experience, I'm using the VS Code extension for the Jupyter notebooks, which is super awesome because it's like in your IDE. It has very nice output as well. So for me, it's even more intuitive than just trying to juggle the terminal and the web browser, but it's just a preference. So I just wanted to share.
Yeah.
I don't think there's good or bad of way of using notebooks, just one of the alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great suggestion because like this is what I was trying to say, that there's kind of some important costs for the Jupyter notebook. For me, it was not wasn't able to grasp it just from the beginning. So having some guides would be useful.
So if you go for this, you can in your file you can just select a notebook over here. You need to select a kernel. Wait, do I need to do the kernel? This is the. Don't I have a kernel installed? Okay, so import pandas SP. Do I have any kernel install enabled? Yeah, it's still installing the extension, but should be good soon. Python environments.
Also,
Let's
if you
say
check it
this
out,
one.
the GitLab dual code suggestion works inside DT.
Yeah. Okay, so it says opt Python 3 parse install. So let's run that and see how it goes. Okay, so I'll figure out this later. I think it's if I select a different interpreter, this should work. But booklet, yeah. So it should select another kernel, Python. Okay, yeah, Python environments. Let me select this one. Let's see if it works. Install. Okay, yeah, it doesn't have pandas, but I can do print. Hello world. And then you can import the libraries that you have on your place and everything. So if I do this at the AI gateway level, at the AI gateway folder, of course I'm here on the handbook page, which does have repository, so which doesn't make sense. But for there we can add some guidelines on how to achieve this. Cool.
And I just checked the PyCharm JetBrains also have the same plugin.
Yeah, it does. And in PyCharm, you can also create a snippet. So I can do a Jupyter snippet that is not saved anywhere. I can just run any already, like I can do import from AI gateway dot I don't know, chat dot container import what do I have in import chat container, something like this. So this is I could quickly test new ideas over here with Scratch. Cool. So moving on. So I think it's for the contribution guidelines for beginning and testing ideas and debugging instead of like something that I see developers doing is testing on using tests like keeping sending requests from Duo Chat on GitLab to our local AI Gateway instance to keep testing. But if we can just test on AI Gateway, the loop of trial and error becomes much faster. So this kind of contribution guidelines are very useful. Okay. Anything else on this topic? So I wanted to bring something to talk about like the guiding principles of writing the documentation, something um, that we can go back and help with decision making. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is who are the people that we're writing this documentation for or these guidelines for? Like who are the users of this and what they are trying uh, to achieve? This can help us define the wording, define the goals, define the trade-offs as well that you are willing to take. So what do you think about this?
I mean, for different guidelines, there will be different users. Because, for example, for the guys for non-Python developers, of course, it will be um, yeah, I guess we can safely assume that this is the person who knows already Ruby and who kind of don't know Python. I guess this is all that we can, we shouldn't assume anything else. But for I don't know, for example, code review guidelines, we would expect that will be the two users, two roles. One of them to be the person who knows Python and actually like the maintainer who just need the guidance on what exactly we need to review. and the second person will be the person who like create the code. So they will basically need to just kind of use it as a checklist. Have that in my code.
Second person.
And I guess for the code creation, where there is like the short role that could be it's maybe like too much in the future, but it could be newly onboarded Python developer who just need to also learn how to do Python in GitLab.
Python developer that needs to learn to onboard to our Python base.
I would say that this kind of aligns in the nice line of like progression on the Python journey. Like I would say that the entry level is the first point that Tatiana shared. So person who doesn't really know Python but understand the programming principles. And there's a person who knows the Python but it's not don't understand the product or like the architecture of the product. And there is the most advanced level, like the maintainer who both knows both Python and understand the product architecture. So this kind of like to me seems like it's aligns in the line of progression how person could go on the Python journey if they want to be the most expert in that domain.
Also, like want to just kind of say again that person who like don't know Python and understand programming principles, this will be the person who will be actually kind of not only understand programming principles but write in Ruby. So like my personal quickly share that my journey to Python right now is that recently I was trying to like work on some task and I was like painfully trying to apply the Ruby principle and Ruby typing there, and it didn't end well. So I needed to kind of rethink the whole solution. That's I feel that like our guide is supposed to be like kind of like be specifically written for those people who will be trying to write the Ruby code with Python, which will be not effective. And maybe it will kind of yield the different results with some different person who just know how to like know like programming principles but don't know Ruby.
I think it's a good point, but also I think that important part is kind of like one of the first sentences would be if you know Ruby, just forget about Ruby because there's like a lot of like this language is on the surface so looks really similar, but under the hood they are very different. And if you're gonna try to write a lot of Ruby in Python, you're gonna have a bad time. So like keep in mind the object-oriented programming principles, like the solid principles, like all the programming, like software architecture, software engineering knowledge that you have, but try to forget about Ruby because it can lead you to like a dead end. So I think that we can try to use the examples. Like if you're trying to do this in Ruby, this is how would you do it in Python. But probably we should put a lot of emphasis that don't try to shy away from Ruby when you're working with Python because this is a trap waiting for you somewhere in down the road.
Yeah.
And we also can maybe kind of encourage people to actually like if we will have this guide like what to do, what to don't do. Maybe we can just encourage people to just share their own like I don't know like a kind of regression bug testing. When you just kind of when the bug appear, you just write the test so prevent it in the future. We can just kind of collectively write those examples when we bump ourselves into some corners.
Dan, you are on the other side. What do you have to say about this?
I think they're valid points we need to have for both. Like if you just write in Python with the good or best practice, but then also I think there are guides on how to kind of transition from, if you're familiar with Ruby, there's some concept that can be translatable to Python or something like that. So
Hmm.
it could be another guy on its own. But yeah, taking a different flavors.
Hmm.
Yeah, I start with Ruby. I've been doing Ruby for quite a long time before switching to Python. So I've been on that journey as well.
Yeah. We could run a quick survey on between the GitLab team members that have been trying to do Python and collect their problems to see if we can target those, like a Google form or something, for that our colleagues could answer the like what are your difficulties, what are your issues. Uh, what do you think? Do you think it's
Yeah,
useful or
good.
not?
It's good.
It's
So
good.
I think overall it could be a good resource, but I don't know if we are like a little bit too early to apply this tool. Like I think this is a really good idea to inform our like transition docs. Like when more people start to transition and we see like, okay, people struggle with, for example, the thing that was giving me a hard time at the beginning, how to patch different classes and methods in tests, because this is way different than in Ruby.
Hmm.
Um, and like when we see this recurring pattern that despite our transition guidelines, a lot of developers like mark that, hey, we are struggling with this kind of like stubbing in tests. And then, okay, we need to like take this part of the guidelines on another iteration and see how we can improve and help those people.
Hmm.
So they don't feel like, oh yeah, there are the guidelines, but in these particular areas they are not helpful and no one's.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vitali.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
I
mean,
personally not in favor of surveys just because I'm like personally don't like surveys and don't like to fill the forms. But also I would say that maybe like I would kind of maybe it's just because I've done it that way and that's why I think that this is the best. But I would think that maybe we can actually just have an issue or just use this Python guides APIC to write, like ask people to write experience there. Because then you could at least you can see what others wrote.
Hmm.
You don't need to repeat yourself. Uh, maybe for some people it'll be better to just like run in a survey kind of game
Yeah.
this in the safe space. I don't know, but maybe we could do both. But also maybe we should just encourage, like in the future, like with the same way we do with when you onboard to any team in GitLab, you are like following the onboarding guides. And then your
Hmm.
task is to just to fill the gaps. What was not clear for you, you can add there. So maybe we don't need to kind of like fill all the gaps just right now. We just need to
Hmm.
have some structure, and people
Hmm.
will be filling later when they realize what is needed there.
Yeah. I think this is a key point. The structure is more important than having everything already. I think this is a really good point.
I can also recommend to read a book, for example, this for testing and just a Python. It will answer like a lot of questions beginner have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. But then you like usually kind of do have a time when you're like when you assign the issue, do you have a time to just stop and just read
Yeah.
1,000 line book or pages book? You probably don't.
Yeah. So
There are
on that
different
point,
ways how people learn it. I can share how I did. So I decided to start learning Python like 2 months ago from completely zero. And as a challenge, I was spending like 2 hours a day for this whole 2 months. Well, a couple of breaks, but anyway. So, and I've bought a couple of courses on Udemy, and I read two books like this one for testing. I finished yesterday, and this one I have Python crash course, which is like pretty thick books. And I finished like 3 courses, one like beginner, something for Python, one for Django because I was curious and comparing to Rails, and one for Fast API. And I prefer this way. It doesn't mean I remember everything, but I got like a pretty good overview of what is going on,
Mhm.
and it answers like a lot of questions about testing, about all the
Mhm.
Yeah,
all the
but
things. So maybe instead of writing this guide ourselves, we can recommend a book. And
Yeah.
but the question,
Uh,
did you like was doing it in your working hours or after work?
after work, yeah,
Yeah, but
you can
that
sacrifice Netflix and different
yeah,
stuff, and
but not everybody have 2 hours to sacrifice on Netflix
yeah, I
because like
understand this.
I don't watch on Netflix like at all. So I mean it would
So
be kind of a bit strange to actually to ask people to sacrifice 2 months of their lives and like to know their families and other stuff for work things that they need at
so
work.
yeah.
I'm pretty
So
sure
what
if you
I
talk with your manager and you will use 1 hour, for example, from work, it shouldn't not be a problem.
so what I for me, these people, the people that were writing this guide to are people that are trying to unblock their teams now. Like they wanna create an MR or something. They're working on a feature and they want to unblock this. We definitely should recommend those books and have a guideline on what books to read. But that cannot be an expectation. We should guide people into that direction. Like, okay, if you want to go deep into Python, into book, I definitely recommend. Like, the Fluent Python is an excellent book. I know the author, uh, but it's time invested to this, and it's not like you can say like, hey, you can have the time for this or you can invest, but it's always opportunity cost on what you are learning. So these guidelines are more, in my opinion, they're more like, okay, you want to do this now. You don't have a lot of time. You need to block your team this milestone or the next milestone. This is what you should be doing now. Now you want to get better. You want to get good at Python. You want to develop yourself into a Python developer. These are the guidelines for to achieve that point. Like I think those are two different personas, right? Very few of the contributors will be able to actually dedicate the time. It would be
And
ideal if they could, but it's difficult.
I can share how it's like in a duo chat team that we just sometimes we like, hey, there is a bug in a AI gateway and we need to fix it right now. And there is basically no time to just stop and learn Python. You have to kind of you are under this pressure to actually to fix it at this moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that. To Tatiana just said, like, I fully agree with you, Vitaly, that like if you want to have this good understanding, like you need these extensive resources, and there is no point of us rewriting the whole library of Python books into our documentation. Um, but also like to what Tatiana said, like there will be a big pool of developers that were like assigned ad hoc or for like very temporary basis, like as part of the borrow as part of some reorg in the GitLab organization, which happens every few months. Those people may not be even that invested in learning Python. It's like, okay, we were assigned there, but they will immediately tell the manager, like, hey, I'm not really super interested in Python. I will be there for a time being, but I want to move to a different group, for example. And it would be helpful to us to provide them like pill size information, what to do in order for like for us to spare so I assume that everyone in this group probably gonna be maintainer of at least one of the services because we are kind of invested in the Python. And as a maintainers, we would be either provide people easy way to understand the basics, or we need to explain them time and time again in the code reviews because the code would not be up to the standard. So despite that, I agree that in ideal world, people would read the Fluent Python and some other books to have this good grasp. this will not happen. Like not for all the engineers. So we need to find a way to make it easier, because in the end we will benefit as the maintainers, and we will get the efficiency gains, because we will not be explaining the same concepts time and time again and getting frustrated that hey, everybody's writing Ruby in Python.
Yeah. And there's a final, and this goes to the final person, which is an external contributor. We don't have a lot right now, but we will have, they're starting to show up a little, some external contributors on this. They will also need those guidelines. They don't know GitLab. They might know Python, they might know Ruby, and they need to jump in on the code. And these people might just do a single MR. They might never come back, right? They're just trying to fix something for their company, or something like some use case. I'll I'll collect these thoughts and I'll write them down later. There are some, well, we are out of time and I'll not hold you off for too long, but there are other two components here. Uh, how is the work that these people have now, and how is it going to be different by having these guidelines? So what is the gap that these guidelines are providing? We have like an intuition already. Everyone has their intuition, but it gives off good progress. And finally, what should Python development look like at GitLab? Like what what would be the experience of a Python developer at GitLab? So these are 2 points. Virali?
Yeah, I just want to say a quick note. So with this book, Fluent Python is mentioned several times, but at the beginning of the book, it's written, but it's not, beginners shouldn't read this book because it
Yeah,
will just be in the way. So maybe we should not recommend it to
maybe
new
we
Python
should.
developers, and maybe
Yeah,
it's later to learn the concept.
yeah,
So we can discuss it separately, but
yeah.
I just noticed the book mentioned like several times.
I'll try to see if we can get a talk from the author. Um, cool. Um, yeah. So thank you everyone for jumping in today in this morning or evening, and um, the issues are open. The issues are for everyone. The epics over there are for everyone to discuss. What I plan on doing this week is creating a skeleton place where the documentation will go, or at least survey the documentation on where they should go and create an issue MR so that we can start adding MRs for documentation, at least the code review. And it doesn't need to be right. We can just keep, we should be iterating. So you don't need to have one MR for everything. We can add one MR with a structure and then keep adding, even if it has some to-dos in the middle, and then we keep adding more things. If you have ideas on the last 2 points, we can discuss on our next meeting in 2 weeks. But I'll be trying to write down something on this. Cool. Thank you. If you have any actions already, or you want to start writing something, I think for the next meeting we should already have something written, some MR on the fly. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks, Adriano, for hosting it.